The space station's dining hall was alive with colors and sounds. Bright neon lights danced on the walls, and the smell of strange alien dishes filled the air. Humans, reptilians, insectoids, and other species sat together, eating and talking. In one corner, a human named Ethan sat quietly, scanning the menu displayed on a holographic screen. He had been on the station for only 3 weeks, working as a cargo technician. Life here was fast, noisy, and very different from Earth. He enjoyed the experience, but he still preferred a quiet meal after a long day. That night, however, his dinner was about to become anything but quiet. Lyra entered the hall like a streak of silver light, her tall frame, shimmering blue skin, and bright violet eyes turned heads as she passed. She was a member of the Valen people, a proud warrior race known for their strength and strict traditions. Her clan believed in honor, respect, and a clear code between males and females. She spotted Ethan sitting alone and walked toward him with a confident smile. "Human," she said in her smooth, melodic voice. "I have heard of you. The one who fixed the power grid in Dock 4. Ethan smiled politely. "That was just my job, nothing special." But Lyra tilted her head, studying him with curiosity. "Will you share a meal with me?" she asked. Ethan was a little surprised, but he nodded. "Sure, why not?" They sat across from each other, the table glowing faintly from the embedded lights beneath its surface. A holographic waiter appeared, taking their orders. Lyra chose the most expensive Valen delicacies without hesitation. Ethan ordered something simple, a bowl of stew from his home region. As they waited, she leaned forward. "Humans interest me. Your people are unusual," Ethan chuckled. "I could say the same about yours." When the food arrived, Lyra ate with perfect, graceful movements. She spoke of her homeworld, vast oceans, crystal towers, and skies filled with twin suns. Ethan listened, fascinated. Sharing small pieces about Earth, it was a pleasant meal, warm and friendly, until the end. The holographic waiter returned, displaying the glowing bill in the air above the table. Without thinking, Ethan reached into his pocket and said, "All right, let's split it." Lyra froze, her hand stopping halfway to her drink. Her violet eyes narrowed. "What did you say?" "Let's split it," Ethan repeated casually. "Half for you, half for me." Fair and simple. Lyra blinked, her expression shifting from surprise to confusion, then to shock. "In my culture," she said slowly, "a male always pays for the female's meal. It is a sign of respect and strength." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "In my culture, we believe in sharing, both paying our own way. It's about equality." Her jaw tightened, and she leaned back in her chair. "To invite a female and not provide for her is a deep insult among my people," she said. "But I didn't invite you," Ethan pointed out gently. "You came to my table. We both agreed to eat, so we share the cost." Lyra's eyes studied him like a puzzle she couldn't solve. She paid for her half without another word. The air between them was no longer light and friendly. It carried a quiet tension. As they stood, Lyra said, "I will remember this, human." Her voice held both curiosity and challenge. Ethan simply smiled. "I'm sure you will." They parted ways in the corridor outside, the hum of the space station surrounding them. Lyra walked toward her quarters, her thoughts spinning. Never before had she met a male who refused to follow the old ways. Among the Valens, such behavior would be seen as weakness. And yet, Ethan hadn't looked weak. His eyes were calm, steady. She wondered if this was arrogance or something deeper. She needed to understand why a human would act like this. Later that night, Lyra spoke with her friend Saren, another Valen warrior. She told her about the meal, about the strange human custom. Saren laughed. "Perhaps humans cannot afford to pay. Perhaps they are poorer than we thought." But Lyra didn't laugh. Something about Ethan's confidence made her doubt that theory. Her mind kept returning to his calm expression. The way he spoke of equality, it was not the way of her people. But it did not feel like cowardice either. She decided she would investigate this human's strange beliefs. and perhaps challenge him in a way no other alien had before. As the space station floated silently above the gas giant below, Lyra made a quiet promise to herself. The next time she met Ethan, it would not be for a simple meal. It would be a test, one that would reveal the truth about human males. The next morning, the space station's market hall was crowded with traders. Holosigns flashed prices in a dozen alien languages. Lyra moved through the crowd, her long cloak trailing behind her, her mind still caught on last night's dinner. She could not stop thinking about the human named Ethan, and his strange refusal to follow what she considered basic honor. She stopped at a tea stall where her closest friend, Saren, was already waiting. Saren was taller than Lyra, her silver armor shining in the market's glow. "You are late," Saren said with a grin. "Was the human keeping you busy?" Lyra ignored the teasing, ordering a steaming cup of greenish Valen tea. "He refused to pay for my meal," Lyra said quietly. Saren almost choked on her drink. "He what?" "In front of the entire hall," Lyra continued. "He suggested we split the cost. Like two warriors sharing supplies." Saren laughed loudly, turning a few heads nearby. "So it is true. Humans really are strange," Lyra frowned. "I do not know if it is weakness or something else." Saren leaned closer. "It is weakness, Lyra. A male who cannot provide will never win the respect of a female." But Lyra shook her head slowly. He was not afraid. His eyes were steady. It was as if he believed his way was the correct one. Her words surprised even herself. Later that day, Lyra walked past the human section of the station, through the wide windows. She saw Ethan talking to a group of other humans. They laughed together, shared food, and exchanged tools. They seemed relaxed, almost like a family. She stepped inside, curiosity guiding her. Ethan noticed her and nodded politely. "Lyra, good to see you again. I have questions," she said firmly, "and I expect answers." Ethan smiled faintly. "Go ahead." "In your culture," she began, "does every male refuse to provide for a female, even one he invites to a meal?" Ethan shook his head. "No, it's not about refusing. It's about choice. Some men pay. Some split the bill. Some women pay. It's about fairness, not status." Lyra narrowed her eyes. "Fairness sounds like an excuse for avoiding responsibility." "And your way," Ethan replied calmly, "sounds like a rule that removes freedom." The other humans nearby pretended not to listen, but their ears were clearly turned toward the conversation. Lyra crossed her arms. "Among my people, a male's worth is measured by what he can give to others. The greater the gift, the greater the respect." Ethan nodded. "Among mine, a person's worth is measured by how they treat others, not by how much they spend on them." Her mind spun at the contrast. That night, Lyra could not sleep. She replayed his words over and over in her head. Saren's voice echoed too, warning her that humans were dangerous in their thinking. But there was something about Ethan's confidence that refused to leave her thoughts. By morning, she had made her decision. If she wanted to understand this human's strange values, she would need to test them, not with words, but with action. And so, she began planning a challenge, one that would put Ethan's beliefs on display before many eyes. It would happen soon, and the whole station would be watching. The challenge was announced 3 days later. It spread through the space station like fire through dry leaves. Lyra, the Valen warrior, had called out the human Ethan to prove his worth in the hospitality duel, a tradition among her people, but unheard of among humans. Crowds gathered in the central atrium, a huge open space surrounded by glass balconies. Vendors shut down their stalls early just to watch. Aliens of every shape filled the area, buzzing with excitement. Some placed bets, whispering that the human had no chance. Ethan stood calmly in the center, dressed in simple station clothes. He had no armor, no weapons, only a confident smile. Lyra approached, wearing ceremonial silver and blue, her long hair tied in warrior braids. Her presence alone drew silence from the crowd. Saren stepped forward as the announcer, her voice ringing out. Today, we witness a duel not of combat, but of honor, generosity, and tradition. She turned to Ethan. In this challenge, you will be given 100 credits. Your task: host your opponent, provide for them, and earn the crowd's approval. Gasps rose from the audience, many already sure the human would fail. Lyra watched him closely, expecting him to buy her the finest food and gifts. That was the Valen way: spend as much as possible to prove your strength. But Ethan didn't rush toward the luxury stalls. Instead, he walked toward the outer market where the smaller vendors were. People followed, confused. Ethan bought fresh fruit from a quiet insectoid farmer, handmade scarves from an old reptilian woman, and hot tea from a young orphan vendor. Each time he paid fairly, even adding extra. And each time he introduced Lyra to the seller, asking about their lives. At first, Lyra was impatient. "This is not the way," she said. "You are supposed to show your wealth, not talk to peasants." Ethan glanced at her. "I'm showing something better, respect," she frowned, unsure whether to feel insulted or intrigued. By the time they returned to the atrium, Ethan's 100 credits were gone, but instead of gold and jewels, Lyra carried a scarf smelling of fresh dye, a small box of spiced tea leaves, and a pouch of rare fruit. The crowd was puzzled. This was not the Valen way. Surin raised an eyebrow. "Is this your show of honor, human?" Ethan faced the audience. "In my culture, providing for someone doesn't always mean spending the most money," he said. "It means making them feel valued, sharing something real, something that lasts beyond one meal." There was a ripple of murmurs, some mocking, others thoughtful. Lyra stood silent, her mind wrestling with his words for the first time in years. She didn't know who had truly won, but one thing was certain: the human had not played her game. He had made her play his, and somehow, she didn't hate it. The duel had barely ended when the station alarms began to scream. Red lights flashed across the atrium, bathing the crowd in an urgent glow. A deep mechanical voice echoed from the ceiling speakers. "Security alert, pirate boarding detected in Dock 7. Gasps and shouts filled the air as panic spread through the gathered aliens. Lyra's hand went instantly to her side, searching for a weapon she didn't have. She had come dressed for a duel, not a battle. Surin rushed to her side. "Pirates are cutting through the docking seals. We need to get to the armory." But Lyra's eyes were scanning the crowd. She was looking for Ethan. She spotted him near the edge of the atrium, helping a frightened insectoid mother and her 2 younglings. "Human," she called, running toward him. Ethan looked up, his expression calm but alert. "They've locked down the main corridors," he said. "We'll need another way out." The crowd was surging, everyone pushing toward the exits. Alien voices overlapped in a desperate roar. Lyra and Ethan moved together, ducking into a side passage lit only by dim maintenance lights. The hum of the station's life support systems was louder here. Suddenly, a blast shook the walls. Dust and sparks rained from the ceiling. "They've breached the inner ring," Ethan said, pulling Lyra behind a stack of supply crates. A group of pirates stormed past, tall, armored brutes with glowing visors and heavy rifles. Lyra's warrior instincts screamed to fight, but she was unarmed. Ethan whispered, "Don't rush. Observe first." She gave him a sharp look. "I am not a coward." "And I'm not asking you to be," he replied. "I'm asking you to survive." They waited until the pirates moved deeper into the station. Then Ethan guided her toward a service hatch. Inside, the narrow crawl space smelled of oil and metal. It was just wide enough for one person to move at a time. As they crawled, Lyra spoke in a low voice. "Why help me?" "We are not allies." Ethan's voice was steady. "Because when danger comes, I help whoever is beside me." The words were simple, but something about them lodged in Lyra's mind. In her culture, loyalty was tied to blood and clan, not to strangers. They emerged into a small control room overlooking Dock 7. Through the wide window, they could see pirate ships clamped to the station's hull. More boarding parties were coming. Ethan quickly began tapping commands into the security Panel, what are you doing? Lyra asked. Locking them in the docking bay. He said, if we seal the blast doors, we buy time for security forces to respond. A warning beep filled the room. The controls were protected by a code. Lyra stepped forward, fingers flying over the panel. I can break it. In less than 10 seconds, the lock released. Ethan slammed the final command, and heavy steel doors began to slide shut in the docking bay. Pirates pounded on the metal, but they were trapped. The room shook as the bay's outer airlock system engaged, sealing them off completely. Lyra turned to Ethan, breathing hard. You fight without weapons, you win without gold, and now you protect without hesitation, she said slowly. Ethan gave a small shrug. Guess I'm just paying the bill in my own way. Lyra stared at him for a long moment, realizing she was starting to understand. 2 days after the pirate attack, the space station returned to its usual rhythm. Shops reopened, crowds returned to the market, and music floated once more through the halls. But in the Valen sector, the mood was anything but calm. Word had spread of Ethan's actions, both his strange dual performance and his role in trapping the pirates. Lyra was summoned to the High Council chamber. The chamber was a towering dome of crystal walls, glowing with soft blue light. 12 Valen elders sat in a half-circle, their ceremonial armor polished to a mirror shine. The air smelled faintly of incense and old authority. At the center stood a podium, and to Lyra's surprise, Ethan was already there. His hands were resting calmly on the edge, but his eyes scanned the room with quiet focus. When Lyra stepped in, the lead elder spoke. You have brought this human into our attention, warrior Lyra. You claim he acted with honor during the pirate attack. Lyra nodded. I do. Another elder leaned forward, his voice sharp. And yet, reports say this human refused to honor our customs during the hospitality duel. Murmurs rose from the other elders. Some looked at Ethan as if he were a child who needed discipline. Others watched him with the curiosity one might reserve for a rare animal. Ethan finally spoke, his voice steady. With respect I came here to work and to live, not to pretend to be someone I'm not. He looked at each elder in turn. Where I'm from, respect is not bought with coins or expensive gifts. It's earned through actions and honesty. A few elders frowned at his words, while others tilted their heads thoughtfully. The lead elder asked, and yet you expect us to accept this human idea of equality? Ethan didn't flinch. I don't expect you to accept it, but I do expect you to see its results. I helped stop the pirates, not because of a rule, not because of payment, but because it was right. His words echoed in the chamber. For a long moment, no one spoke. Finally, an elder known for his sharp tongue said, perhaps the human way is foolish. Perhaps it is dangerous, but it is different. Lyra stepped forward, her voice carrying across the chamber. Different is not weakness. I saw his courage. I saw his choices, and I would stand beside him again. The declaration made several elders exchange glances. The mood in the room shifted slightly. The lead elder raised his hand, silencing the whispers. Human, we will not adopt your customs, but we will recognize your actions, he said, and we will watch you closely. Ethan gave a small nod. Fair enough. Lyra caught the faintest hint of a smile on his face as they left the chamber together. Lyra spoke quietly. You could have bowed to them, told them what they wanted to hear, but you didn't. Ethan's reply was simple. Respect means nothing if you trade it for approval. Lyra found herself turning that sentence over in her mind as they walked. The days after the council meeting passed quietly. The station returned to its usual flow, but something between Lyra and Ethan had changed. They saw each other in passing, sometimes in the market, sometimes in the training halls. Each time, their conversations were a little longer, a little less guarded. One evening, Ethan sent a simple message to Lyra's come device. Dinner? My treat this time. Lyra stared at the words for a long moment, her lips curving into the smallest smile. She replied with a single word, yes. They met at a small corner cafe in the human sector. Unlike the grand Valen dining halls, this place was warm and cozy. Soft lights hung low over the tables, and the smell of fresh bread filled the air. There was no crowd, no duel, no council watching. Ethan stood when she arrived, pulling out her chair in a gesture she recognized but had never experienced from him before. "I'm paying tonight," he said lightly. "Not because I have to, but because I want to." Lyra tilted her head. "So this is a choice, not a duty?" He nodded. "Exactly." They ordered simple food, a mix of human and Valen dishes. While they ate, they spoke about things that had nothing to do with customs or challenges. Ethan told her about the rivers of his homeworld, the forests where he played as a child. Lyra spoke of the crystal towers of Vela, the scent of the ocean winds at sunrise. For the first time, she felt like she was not speaking to a representative of another species. She was speaking to just Ethan, and she realized was listening not as a human studying an alien, but as a person who wanted to know her. There was something disarming about that. When the meal ended, the waiter brought the bill. Ethan took it without hesitation. Paying in full, Lyra watched him, then reached across the table, placing half the credits on top of his. He raised an eyebrow, and she smiled. Consider it a gesture, from one equal to another. They left the cafe walking side by side through the softly lit corridors. For a moment, the station felt calm, safe, even peaceful. But as they turned the corner, an urgent alarm began to echo through the halls. The peace was gone in an instant, replaced by the sharp edge of danger once again. The alarm's wail grew louder as Lyra and Ethan ran toward the source. Red emergency lights strobed across the corridors, throwing sharp shadows on the walls. Station guards rushed past them, shouting orders. Through the noise, Ethan caught the words, "Pirates, back again, Dock 5, they didn't waste time." The corridors toward Dock 5 were chaos, filled with fleeing civilians and shouting security teams. Lyra's warrior instincts kicked in instantly, scanning for threats. Ethan moved beside her, ready to react even without a weapon. As they reached the docking area, a blast shook the floor beneath them. Smoke and sparks poured from a damaged wall panel. From the haze emerged 3 pirate fighters, tall, armored, carrying stun rifles. They spotted Ethan immediately. Recognizing him from the last encounter, one of them shouted, "That's the human who trapped us. Take him alive." Before Ethan could move, the pirates charged. Lyra stepped forward, intercepting them with a force that startled even Ethan. Her movements were fluid and fierce, a dance of precision and strength. She disarmed the first pirate with a sharp twist of his weapon arm. The second swung at her, but she ducked low, sweeping his legs from under him. The third aimed his rifle at Ethan, but Lyra was faster. Her shoulders slammed into him, knocking him back into the wall with a thud. Ethan grabbed the dropped rifle, covering her as more pirates appeared in the smoke. But the sound of heavy boots signaled the arrival of station security. The pirates, realizing they were outnumbered, retreated toward their ship. The blast doors sealed behind them with a loud metallic clang. Breathing hard, Lyra turned to Ethan. "Where I come from," she said, her voice steady. "Real females protect those who protect them." Ethan gave her a small, genuine smile. "I guess we're even now," he replied. They walked side by side away from the dock, the chaos fading behind them. In the quiet that followed, Lyra realized something. It no longer mattered who paid for the meal. What mattered was that in the moments that counted, they stood for each other without hesitation. That night, they ended up back at the small cafe in the human sector. The same table, the same warm lights. When the bill came, they split it without a word, and for the first time, they both laughed.